following is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by Wylie High School or the Wylie Independent School District. It is the independent expression of its author. Welcome, everyone, to another bonus edition of Wylie Football Weekly, the only podcast dedicated to your Wylie Pirates varsity football team. I am your host, the one and only Wylie superfan, Pappy, and as a reminder, Wylie Football Weekly is a proud sponsor of the Wylie Pirate Pace Centers, Pirate Cheer, That Wylie Band, and the varsity football team. Decided to go ahead and record an episode today. We're about a month since the last time we've done an episode, and just want to check in and talk about some little odds and ends as we just keep counting down the days through summer until we get to August and get to the 2026 Pirate varsity football season. You know, we mentioned at the top of the show sponsorships, and we have already signed up and paid to be a sponsor of Pirate Cheer this year. We've also done it for the Pirate Pace Setters and just signed up to sponsor the varsity football team for the second year in a row. I'm sure we'll be getting an invoice from them soon. And then that just leaves That Wylie Band, and still definitely going to do it this year. Just not sure exactly how I'm going to, whether it's going to be a donation to the scholarship fund that the band has, or what I did last year, which is sponsor one or more band members for anything that they do in terms of like sponsorship drives and try to get donations. So there's still time for that. And if any of you out there do regularly listen to the show and you're a member of the band or you're a band parent, definitely keep me apprised of opportunities that I can, donate, and things to do. And I'd like to do that. And I think last year we did it in early August when the members of the band were collecting donations for Bands of America. So I don't know if I don't think that's happening this year. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but whatever is happening, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of a fundraiser, and Wylie Football Weekly definitely wants to be a part of that. So let's talk some big time college news here with the Wylie Pirates. Let's start with Dalen Gordon going into his senior year. He's been officially recognized as a 4-star recruit, 4-star running back, and as you know, we've talked about in the last couple of years, he's had a number of FBS offers to schools all over the country. Well, if you haven't been made aware, I'm making you aware now. Dalen Gordon has actually committed to a university, and he's committed to Texas State. So first off, let's congratulate Dalen Gordon, DG, for his commitment there. I think initially it took me by surprise. It's like, okay, well, this is Texas State, not some of the really high profile schools that made offers to Dalen. But on the flip side, one of the things is that, if you're Dalen Gordon, you want to go to a place where you're going to be the guy and you're going to definitely have opportunities to play. I mean, the last thing you want to do is go to a big time program and just be stuck way down the depth chart. And, that I think is not going to happen at Texas State. I think he's going to have an opportunity there. And some of you know, if you follow college football, I don't really follow it all that much, but I follow it enough to know that Texas State has joined the Pac-12, the new look Pac-12. And it may not be the Pac-12 of old or the Pac-10 of old or the Pac-8 of old, but it's still a good conference and it's still this current iteration of it is a step up for Texas State, and I think that it's going to be a really good platform. And certainly he knows what he's doing. It's not like he would have accepted this and committed to Texas State unless, um, you know, that was the best opportunity for him. And it certainly is. And we wish him all the best. But until then, of course, so we're going to definitely enjoy the senior year of our four-star running back. I mean, I don't know that we've ever had a four-star recruit at Wylie High School. I just don't know. I mean, I don't think Nikita Whitlock was a four-star. I don't know. I know he's a fullback, but I think he also played defense too. I don't think he was a four-star. And we've talked before about Coach Monk, and he played quarterback, at Wylie, slicing and dicing opponents, but then he went to Baylor as a tight end. So, I really think Dalen Gordon is one of, if not the, you know, sort of the highest rated recruit in Pirate history. And if there's someone who's higher, if there was actually a five-star recruit, I'd love to hear about it. If you know about it, then let me know and we'll definitely talk about it. In terms of colleges, I also want to talk about JB Blake, quarterback. It's also someone that we've talked a lot about on the show, and he's going to be a senior this year. And we had mentioned that after his freshman year, he had a FBS offer to Texas State. And in this past offseason, there's been FBS and FCS offers rolling in, including, what I thought was very notable. Army made an offer. I thought that's really cool. You even have the opportunity to go to West Point. But I am also here to announce, if you are not aware, and you may not be aware, that JB Blake has committed to an FBS school. This just happened in the last 2 weeks. JB Blake will attend the University of Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns. And first of all, again, big congratulations to him. Very excited. The only thing about this and some of the other offers that he started receiving is that they're DB offers to play defensive back, not to play quarterback. And that also applies to the Raging Cajuns. He's going to go to ULL and be a defensive back there. And if that if that reminds you of anyone, it should, because back in the 2010s, the Pirates had a quarterback, Cameron Kelly. He played quarterback. He played some wide receiver. He also played safety for the Pirates. But the last couple of years of his senior year, of his high school career, he was a quarterback. He was the starting quarterback for the Wylie Pirates. And he went to San Diego State, FBS, but to play DB, to play safety, and to my knowledge, whether it be NCAA, whether it be the American Association of Football, which no longer exists, or the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers, or the current, what is it, the UFL, I think? I think that's what it's called. He has always played DB, safety, really. So it's a similar path for JB Blake, where he is the Pirates quarterback. My understanding is he will still be the starting quarterback, QB1, for this senior year. So we'll still have the Blake and Gordon show. And I know there's some of you that get tired of hearing about Blake and Gordon. Well, I think this is the last year of that. But that's kind of how it goes when you have these third year players. When we had the 22, 23, and 24 seasons, we talked a lot about Jagger Bale, Martavian Sanders, and Brady Dalton. We just kept hearing those names over and over again. And for the years 24, 25, and this year, 2026, there's going to be a lot of Blake, Gordon, and Grandy. So that's just how it is. And yeah, in terms of Blake going to the Raging Cajuns as a DB, again, very excited for him. It's a great opportunity. It is actually a good school. My little brother, he lives in Louisiana. He lives in Shreveport, but he's previously actually lived in Lafayette and knows knows people in the Raging Cajuns athletic department because my brother's a sports broadcaster. But I digress. With Blake, I guess the only thing is I really thought that JB Blake was going to be the first, to my knowledge, real actual Wylie starting quarterback who ends up a starting quarterback at an FBS school. We really haven't had that in Pirate history. Like we talked about, maybe Jared Monk in 2008 had the best season of a Wylie Pirate quarterback, and he went to Baylor to play tight end. He didn't play quarterback at the FBS level, and I really thought Blake was going to be the guy because right out of his freshman year, he's got an FBS offer. He, kind of split time between varsity and JV in his sophomore year, just so he can get actual quarterback snaps at the JV level. And then, of course, last year, starting quarterback. And then this year, all indications are he's a starting quarterback. And yeah, it's just a little bummer to me because I'd like to see once that Wiley have a quarterback that colleges are foaming at the mouth to have them come in and play quarterback. Now, that's not to take anything away from JB Blake, because, we don't really know all of the specifics, but we've always said he is an absolute freak athlete. And so is Dalen Gordon. But Blake is unreal in terms of athleticism. So I don't blame schools for making the offer, and I don't blame him for doing what's best for him, right? I mean, you don't want to be in a situation where, you're potentially narrowly focused in on being a quarterback, and that hurts your chances for college, And good thing that reminds me of is one quarterback, Trey Lance, which I think a lot of people here listening to this show are familiar with the name. Well, he was a high school quarterback and he was heavily recruited. And the thing is that schools, FBS schools that wanted him, they wanted him to play defense, and he wanted to be quarterback. And then so he decided he took an FCS offer. And that FCS offer was North Dakota State. And then, of course, ended up being the third pick overall in the NFL draft. But now North Dakota State has gone into FBS, so that's a little bit different. But that was the whole point: is he had to go play at a different level of football because the highest level they couldn't get anyone interested in him to play quarterback. And yeah, maybe things haven't worked out great for him, but he is still an NFL quarterback. He's got a backup. He's got another contract with the Chargers, and he's backing them up. So he's still making money, and he's still an NFL quarterback. So I just can't knock a player. I cannot knock an athlete, a student athlete, for not wanting to do that, for sticking to your guns, and then that forces you to go play at a lower level. Now JB Blake, he's going to go and he's going to play FBS football, and he's going to go to a good school. And I think that's a win. That's an absolute win. So once again, congratulations, JB Blake, committing to University of Louisiana Lafayette. And just like with Gordon, with everybody else that's going to be on this varsity 2026 squad, very, very excited to see you play this season, the senior year. And, we'll talk in August about how this team looks, but I think there's reasons to be excited. There's definitely reasons to take pause, but that may not necessarily be the actual athletic talent on the field. That may be other reasons. The next thing I want to talk about is another coaching change at our arch rival, Wylie East. So let's kind of get into it and let's talk about it. And it's going to have a huge impact on the Wylie East program going forward, and whether that is for the better or for the worse or the same, I think that remains to be seen. But here's the story if you don't know it. And we are going to start, it starts in Round Rock, Texas. McNeil High School. There's been a big coaching carousel, a lot of schools hiring and firing coaches and coaches leaving. And one of the openings down in the Austin area, Round Rock at McNeil High, which is a 6A program, was taken by a former offensive line coach out in one of the Arlington schools, Jonathan Cruz. And Mr. Cruz, back in May, got into some legal trouble, some criminal trouble. We'll just leave it at that. And needless to say, that caused them to let Cruz go, and they needed to go hire someone else. And just a couple weeks ago, and you may have seen this in the Wylie news, that they Round Rock McNeil hired Wylie East offensive coordinator Jerry Gardner. Right. So first of all, Coach Gardner, congratulations to him. I mean, he's been doing an amazing job as OC under Marcus Gold at Wylie East, as we've seen firsthand. And he's very much deserves, to be a 6A head coach. And that's going to happen at McNeil now. So thanks to someone else getting into some trouble, a big opportunity opened up for Coach Gardner. And so he's gone, and it did not take long for Wylie East to hire their replacement. All right. And Coach Gardner is being replaced. The new Wylie East offensive coordinator is Coach Cooper Crowell. All right. And obviously, first of all, congratulations to Coach Crowell, and look forward to seeing him on the opposing sideline, right? Now, here's the thing about Coach Crowell is I'm looking at the announcement that was put out by Wylie East football, and when I first saw it, it ticked me off. It ticked me off, I mean, in the sense of envy, right? And let me just read to you what it says, and then we'll talk about why Wylie East football actually put out an announcement that is deceptive. So their announcement says Coach Crowell brings a wealth of experience as an offensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, assistant head coach, and head coach from some of the from some of the premier football programs in Texas. Most recent stops. Remember that. Most recent stops at Rockwall Heath, Allen, and Midlothian Heritage. His proven track record of developing players, building explosive offenses, and leading successful programs makes him a tremendous addition to the Dub East family. So I saw that, and I saw Rockwall Heath, I saw Allen, I saw Midlothian Heritage, I saw that he was OC, special teams coordinator, assistant head coach, and head coach. Oh my God. I mean, that just made my head spin. We've been talking so much about how at Wylie High, we can't get the hot coach, right? We can't get a hot coach, and arguably there's a good old boys club that impacts Wylie to its detriment. That doesn't happen with Wylie East, right? Because Wylie East went out and they hired the hot coach from 5A, right? That was Marcus Gold, right? And then he brought his staff over. And then now this announcement really makes you think that Cooper Crowell, Coach Crowell, is the hot thing, the hot new thing. They hired the hot offensive coordinator, right? Well, not exactly. Not exactly. So let's back up and let's talk about Cooper Crowell and his history, all right? So he was a long-time offensive coordinator at Midlothian Heritage. That is a fact. And when he was there, the team was rocking and rolling. So definitely, absolutely, if he had just come from Midlothian Heritage OC to Wylie East, I think you should step back and be like, damn, this is a great hire. This is a great hire. When you go back and you look at his 6 years as offensive coordinator at Midlothian Heritage, you see a lot of 10 wins, 11 wins. You see a lot of going 3 rounds deep in the playoffs. Now that is a 4A school, but still, very high-powered offense, throwing up the points. Now, here's the thing, though. The thing about Coach Crowell is that to start the 2020 season, he was hired to be a head coach, but it wasn't at any of these schools listed in the Wylie East football announcement. It was at North Lamar High School, which, if you aren't familiar, North Lamar ISD is in Paris, Texas. All right, so up north in Paris. And he was hired to be the head coach. And that was the COVID year. So they didn't get in 10 games, but they got in 8. And the thing about Coach Crowell as a head coach in this 2020 season at North Lamar is that they didn't win a game. And not only did they not win a game, but they got shut out 5 weeks in a row. They only scored points in weeks 1, 2, and 8. They only scored a total of 45 points. Okay. Now, I mean that's worse than South Garland bad. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that because you don't know what the program he inherited, and there was COVID issues and this and that. But what's really interesting about Coach Crowell and North Lamar High School is that he left after 1 year. He left after this winless season. He ended up going and joining the staff over at Allen. And, again, we don't know the circumstances. You can't, if you try to go and look up and Google, you won't get an answer as to why, he was hired to turn around this program at North Lamar and ditch them after a year. But that's what happened. That's what happened. And the thing is when he went to Allen, he wasn't OC. And in fact, he hasn't been OC since a Midlothian Heritage, right, which was last decade. He was an assistant at Allen, and then most recently, right from there, he ended up receivers coach, a wide receivers coach at Rockwall Heath. So in fact, he was on the sideline last year in Wylie East's final game. But it's interesting because it's after this 1 year at North Lamar, it's taken a long time, but finally here in 2026, years later, it's finally back to being an offensive coordinator and finally being a 6A offensive coordinator. But to me it's very interesting that one, what happened at North Lamar that you didn't want to stay, and keep building out this program, and you kind of left them to go find a new coach after 1 year, which, by the way, for the next few years, they kept winning more and more games until I think maybe last year or 2 years ago, they had another win this season. These things happen, right? This is a 4A school in Paris. But the other thing that's really interesting is that the Wylie East football program, they put out this announcement, right? And this announcement very clearly says most recent stops at Rockwall Heath, Allen, and Midlothian Heritage. It omits North Lamar, right? They're lying to you. They literally, Wylie East football program put this announcement to hype up their new OC, and they said what his most recent stops are, but then left one out. They left out that little blemish where he had a god awful season as a head coach, and then apparently, we don't know for sure, but apparently ditched the program. Now, none of this is to say that he's going to come in and do a bad job. Like I said, when he was an offensive coordinator at 4A Midlothian Heritage, that team balled. That team, go look up those numbers. 2013 to 2019 Midlothian Heritage. I mean, those teams scored at will week to week on their opponents, until they got deep in the playoffs. But that's a different story, right? But in their regular season, I mean, they would routinely throw up 60s and 70s. But it's just very interesting the lengths to which the one season as a head coach at North Lamar is being buried. And the other thing is if you're a Pirate fan here and you're frustrated with the Pirate coaching staff, and maybe you're frustrated, and you're frustrated also because Jared Wyatt has gone, of course, as we expected and we talked about last episode, went to go join his brother, Jordan, in the Wylie East coaching staff. And if you're, potentially frustrated because Marcus Gold isn't jumping to a better opportunity, so there's still going to be a head coaching mismatch in the city of Wylie. You can take some solace in the fact that even though Coach Crowell was a great offensive coordinator at Midlothian Heritage, the fact that it's taken this long to even get back to an OC position, and coming off the heels of what Coach Jerry Gardner did at Wylie East as their OC, you have to think that maybe it's a step down, or maybe it's just or maybe it's just something to hang your hat on. That the offense isn't going to be the same. And the other thing is as we mentioned with Wylie East, when they had a head coaching opportunity, they hired the hot 5A head coach, right? And now when they have an offensive coordinator opening, they didn't hire the hot 5A OC or the hot 5A head coach, right? They hired again this great offensive coordinator from last decade, and then has now had to work his way back up after the stint at North Lamar that the Wylie East football program doesn't even want you to know about. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see. Now, again, like I said, that's not to say that Wylie East is not going. They could still steamroll their opponents because at least under Coach Gold, they've been an absolute machine, right? So we can't say for certain that okay, Coach, there's a new OC now that it's going to be this huge step down and there's going to be a big change in how their offense runs. I mean, there will be a change because I mean Cooper Crowell he's going to bring his own scheme, right, and his what he wants to run. That could end up becoming better, right? It could be a lot better. And even though Wylie East has graduated some really good players, they still have good ones, right? And I mean, they're still gonna they've got Jonathan Udabor, and he's a beast at running back. We saw that in the Civil War game last year. They've still got one Porter brother, right? They got Amir Porter. He's still there. He's good. And look, I think that their starting quarterback is going to be the sophomore Ekpo, who he played a little bit as a freshman. He was on varsity for sure. And he also has FBS offers already, at least at Texas State. He's probably a starting quarterback. And you probably haven't seen the offensive line for next year. I have for Wylie East, and they're a bunch of. At least they're huge. They're huge, right? And one of the hallmarks of Wylie East football under Marcus Gold is how good they are in the trenches with offensive line and defensive line. So they can still roll this district. They can still go undefeated in district. They can still very well wipe the floor with Wylie in the fifth consecutive year. We don't want to see that, obviously, but you can't discount it. But I do think you have to, if you're a Wylie East fan, you have to be bummed by this turn of events. Right? You have to be bummed that Coach Cruz got in criminal trouble, which created an opening which Jerry Gardner pounced on, and you lost this amazing offensive coordinator, right? You have to be. You have to be. And then you're getting somebody who hasn't been an offensive coordinator now since the 2019 season, you know. And he's been a receivers coach. He hasn't been calling plays. He hasn't been running an offense. So, whether that's a big cause for concern, we don't know. But it is something interesting. And, I'm recording this on June 24th. We don't have a lot to talk about. That's why we talked about Blake. We talked about Gordon. And this was another piece of news. I really wish we had Wylie news to talk about, right? I really wish we had a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, a new head coach. We've always said, like, we're not the ones getting exciting hires, We're not even the ones getting, hires at all. We're just getting the status quo, even though this team's coming off another disappointing year. So, anyways, again, best of luck to Cooper Crowell. This was not an indictment, but rather, it really struck me once I started digging through this that somebody or somebodies are really trying to hide the ball about, the glaring negative spot on Coach Crowell's resume, which is that winless season, 1 year as a head coach, and then bolts. Maybe there's a good reason. Maybe there's a good reason. Maybe I'm going to get an angry email saying that there was a really good personal reason to ditch North Lamar after 1 year. But, right now, that's what it looks like. There isn't anything out there to contradict that. And especially when you do that, you go from that to going to working as an assistant, even a lower assistant at Allen High School, right? It's not like he just went to, jump over to another school to be a head coach, but he jumped over to take a lower position at one of the premier programs in the state of Texas, right? And then also receivers coach at a very well regarded top program in Texas at Rockwall Heath. So just food for thought, something to think about. Pirate fans, for us, maybe this is a glimmer of hope, you know, and Wylie East fans, maybe this is a potential cause for concern. This is really the first big blow to the Wylie East machine, right? Or I should say, first big change, right? Because Marcus Gold, he's taken a lot of pride in keeping the same staff and as much the same staff as possible. And now you're getting these changes. And with these changes, I mean, it could be better or it could potentially be worse, right? And if I were a Wiley East fan, I would just be guarded, right? Guarded, hope, still optimistic because you got to love this team and you got to love the head coach, but guarded because now there are some bigger changes now with Coach Gardner gone and Coach Rose gone. I mean, these are big parts. Those are big, huge parts of what was previously the brain trust, right, of the Wylie East coaching staff. Coach Gold, Coach Rose, Coach Gardner. Well, two of those three are gone now, right? And now you've got new blood, right? You promoted Jordan Wyatt to DC. You've now brought in Cooper Crowell to be OC. We'll have to wait and see how these things gel. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Don't really have much else to talk about. We'll see again when we come back. If we come back and do a July episode, if we get feedback, then we'll definitely do that. Otherwise, we will be back in August to start season 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Season 5 of Wylie Football Weekly, and can't wait. Can't wait. Once again, this is Wylie Football Weekly, the only podcast dedicated to your Wylie Pirates varsity football team. I am your host, the one and only super fan Pappy, saying AHMO, baby. AHMO.